Hi, I'm Danny Quinn, and welcome to another episode of First Impressions. On today's episode, the hunt is on as I seek out Shane Black's take on the Predator. So the plot of this movie is that another Predator lands on Earth and comes into contact with Army sniper Quinn McKenna, played by Boyd Holbrook, who is forced to team up with biologist Casey Brackett, played by Olivia Munn, and a bunch of misfit soldiers to track it down, as the creature travels towards a small town in search of a mysterious device that Quinn accidentally gifted to his autistic son, played by Jacob Tremblay. Now Quinn must fight to save his son before he becomes the Predator's next target. 1987's Predator is pretty much a stone-cold classic, taking the basic formula of something like Alien, putting it in the jungle, and giving it a very macho spin with a lot of testosterone-filled attitude, tons of memorable one-liners, great characters, and a surprising amount of suspense, something which director John McTiernan really carried over into his follow-up film, Die Hard. And it also helped to cement Arnold Schwarzenegger's popularity during the 1980s. But unfortunately, both men kind of jumped ship after the first movie, so there hasn't been a consistent lead character, nor really much of a lead director to helm these movies. And as a result, the sequels have been kind of a mixed bag. Not bad by any means, and pretty enjoyable in their own rights, but they just don't quite have the same spark that made the first movie work. Although I will admit I do have a bit of a soft spot for Predator too. I do really trashily enjoy that film. It's really silly and it's really over the top. It's basically every 80s action movie cliche packed into one really hilariously fun movie. Granted, I haven't really watched these movies in a long time, so I guess a further viewing of all three of them is due. After all, I do have all three films on Blu-ray, so I don't really have much of an excuse not to watch them. And that leads us on to the latest installment of the franchise, which is helmed by Shane Black, who actually appeared in the original film as Hawkins, and I think he even worked on the script a little bit as well. And he's mainly known as a writer on movies like Lethal Weapon and The Long Kiss Goodnight, and more recently he's branched out into directing with movies like Iron Man 3 and The Nice Guys to his name. He's a very talented filmmaker and I really like a lot of his work. He's very good when it comes to writing sharp, witty, quotable dialogue, he's got a very playful sense of humour, and he's very much a relic of that era of 80s and 90s action movie cinema. So if anybody can pull off a Predator movie, it's him. I think he has a very good chance of doing so. And when I heard that he was going to be writing and directing a Predator movie, I was really looking forward to seeing what he would bring to the franchise. But as much as I was really looking forward to it, and as much as I was hoping it would be good, I was really let down by this movie. I did not like The Predator very much. In fact, I'd even go as far as to say it's probably the most disappointing movie I've seen so far this year. Where do I even begin with this film? I guess I could start by saying that the film isn't all bad. For one, this movie is a lot more tongue-in-cheek than any of the previous Predator movies. Even by Shane Black standards, it's got quite a lot of humour in it, to the point that it almost feels like a parody at points. And I can understand if that approach doesn't really work for some people, but if I'm being honest, I didn't mind it too much. I don't mind the idea on paper. And it's not like the Predator franchise hasn't been silly and over the top before, so to see a film in the series that kind of embraces that isn't inherently a bad idea in my book. The execution isn't quite what it could have been, a problem that we'll get into later in the review, but it seems like Black is going in the right direction at first. And Black still hasn't lost his touch as a writer of dialogue either. There's still quite a lot of lines in here that did get a lot of laughs from me, even if they are arguably in bad taste and aren't exactly all that politically correct. Again, Black's style of humour isn't exactly everybody's cup of tea. I can kind of understand that. It's just that the humour can get really wacky at points. There's some really odd moments of humour throughout that just feel really out of place. There's one gag in particular that involves a Predator killing a bunch of people inside the back of an army van, and then he waves out a severed arm with a thumbs up to the driver. It's fucking hysterical, but it's so out of place. It feels more like something out of a Kingsman movie or a Deadpool movie than a fucking Predator film. Another thing that does work to the movie's favour is the cast. It really feels like Black is trying to create a similar vibe to Guardians of the Galaxy or Suicide Squad, where it's about this band of misfits coming together to try and tackle a deadly threat. These unlikely heroes, these misfit soldiers, they're all quite quirky, they're all quite eccentric. They constantly go around joking and really annoying the hell out of anyone unfortunate enough to come across their path with their unusual habits. But they all have these very tragic backstories, and they're kind of using their humour and their quirkiness to try and mask that. The actors do deliver Black's signature style of dialogue quite well, and they can sell a joke in a one-liner pretty well too, for the most part. And it helps that they all have good chemistry with each other. And if Black was trying to recreate the same vibe as the first Predator movie, of this bunch of soldiers trying to go up against the threat and they're joking around and they have this sense of camaraderie, I'd say he did succeed to a certain extent. So the film has all the ingredients to make something really good and all the pieces are in place, but it just does not come together very well at all. Especially on a plot level, it's got quite a few cool and interesting ideas, but they all feel very underdeveloped and half-baked. There's a lot of plot lines fighting for attention in this film, and it doesn't have any sense of focus whatsoever. I already mentioned the whole misfits fighting a deadly threat concept, and while it is easily the best aspect of the movie, even that doesn't really come together all that great. Again, I think the only reason why it actually works is because of the cast, because the characterizations are just really lacking for the most part. And it doesn't help that the group of soldiers all ostensibly feel like the same character times 5, and I find it very difficult to tell them apart on several occasions. But easily the worst example of this is in the two leads, who are both really bland and underdeveloped. Boyd Holbrook tries really hard to make his character work, and he can definitely sell a one-liner, and he does manage to be quite snarky and humorous on occasions. But for the most part, he's just very stock and unremarkable. And I don't think that's entirely his fault. I don't think it's his fault at all, in fact. It's just that Black's ability for characterization really doesn't seem to be on display here at all. But at least Holbrook gets to deliver some good one-liners and dialogue, whereas Olivia Munn really gets the short end of the stick. She's supposed to be this biologist who doesn't really get along with others, but you wouldn't know that from watching the film. She has no personality at all, aside from being just a little bit snarky. She's randomly introduced about 10 minutes in and is just plucked into the story for no discernible reason. And like Holbrook, you can tell that Munn is trying desperately to make her character work, and I think she is quite good in this film, but she's constantly let down by the script and how she's just kind of tagging along for much of the movie. For fuck's sake, I honestly think she had more to do with Psylocke in X-Men Apocalypse than she does here. And easily one of the film's biggest misnomers is with regards to the character of Rory, McKenna's autistic son. Fair play to Jacob Tremblay, I think he does a very good job like everybody else in the film. I have no fault with his performance whatsoever, it's just that he's constantly being let down by the script and the clumsy writing. There's a few scenes early on where they do portray the condition fairly realistically, particularly in how he can't stand loud noises, but in general, the film's portrayal of autism is downright laughable. It portrays autism as if it were some kind of superpower or some kind of mystical sixth sense. It even goes as far as to say that autism is the next step in human evolution. I'm not making that up. That's literally what they say at one point. It's just filled with these tired Hollywood cliches and stereotypes that would probably be borderline offensive if they weren't so eye-rollingly stupid. But by far and away the worst thing about The Predator is its editing. The editing in this film is absolutely awful. Not just the action, which is cut to the point of incomprehensibility, but the film in general is just edited terribly. Scenes often just run into each other, some scenes are extremely choppy, and it feels like it's had numerous scenes cut out or condensed to try and reduce the running time. The film looks like it's just been hacked to within an inch of its life. I mean, for fuck's sake, I don't think I've seen a film this terribly edited since The Snowman or maybe even Fantastic Four. Yes. The editing in this film is that bad. There's just so many cuts, and more often than not, it's downright impossible to make out what's actually happening. It's been well documented that the film went through quite a troubled production, and there's been more than a few reports that the film had some pretty extensive reshoots, especially in the film's third act. And generally, I don't mention things like that unless I think it affects the overall quality of the film, but in this case, I think it really does affect the overall quality of the film, because it would go a long way towards explaining why the film is so fucking messy. Because it looks like another instance where the studio took over the movie in post, reshot it, and re-edited it to hell and back. I'm not sure what Black's original vision for the movie was, or whether it was going to be any good to begin with, but it seems like Fox, in their attempts to try and change it, really did not help matters at all. Again, granted this is 20th Century Fox we're talking about, they're pretty infamous for that sort of thing, but I thought we were kind of past the days of X-Men Origins Wolverine. I thought we were kind of past the days of Daredevil and Elektra and fucking A Good Day to Die Hard and Alien vs Predator and all those movies just getting hacked up just to be 100 minutes long, but evidently not. This film was a real disappointment, which is a shame because it didn't start out that bad, but between ideas that are either underdeveloped or straight up ill-conceived, a lack of tension and genuine horror that is not helped by the really wacky tone, as well as its appalling editing, this film does not work at all. It's not exactly the most abysmal movie I've ever seen, and it does have a few things that work. It's not exactly Alien vs Predator Requiem bad, but this is a real mess regardless. It tries to breathe new life into the franchise, but just ends up making it seem more tired than ever. And unfortunately with this film, the Predator franchise now officially has its own Alien Resurrection. And when all is said and done, I'm going to give the Predator a 4 out of 10. I really wanted to like this movie. Honestly, I did. Like I said, I really like Shane Black's work, and I do really like the other Predator movies. I would recommend all 3 of those movies over this any day. And I would definitely recommend any Shane Black movie over this mess. Especially The Nice Guys. That's a movie that really deserves some love. Hell, I'd even recommend Iron Man 3 over this movie any day of the week. Sad to say, but this movie is really not worth sticking around for. So The Predator, have you seen it yet? If so, what did you think of it? Did you like it? Did you not like it? What did you like about it? What did you not like about it? Let me know down in the comments below. Thank you once again for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, feel free to leave a like, leave a comment, maybe even subscribe to my channel while you're at it. And if you want to follow me on social media or support me on Patreon, links below down in the description. And if there's anything I can do to improve my presentation, do let me know. I'm always happy to hear feedback as long as it's somewhat constructive. And until next time, I'm Danny Cohen, and I hope you have a pleasant evening.